Hi, and welcome to Children's Worship at University Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm Reverend Kera Watts, and I am excited that you have joined us as we are asking a really big question. Who does God say that we are? Last week we learned that God says that we are a masterpiece, beautifully created to be who God calls us to be. And today we learn that God says we are strong. Now, we learn about this by reading the scriptures, and we're in the Old Testament, the Hebrew part of the Bible today. And I'm going to read a little bit of that to help set it up. Now, this is a story about a guy named Gideon. Gideon was a pretty young guy. And let me tell you what happens, okay? One day, an angel came to Gideon, and the angel said, "Gideon, the Lord is helping you, and you are a strong warrior." And Gideon answers this angel, I can't imagine doing this, but this is how Gideon responds. "Please don't take this wrong. But if the Lord is helping us, then why have all of these awful things happened to the people I love? We've heard how the Lord performed miracles and rescued our ancestors from Egypt, but those things happened long ago. Now the Lord has abandoned us to the Midianites." Now, the Midianites were a group of people that were coming in and taking over the crops. In just a minute, you'll hear more about that. But you see, Gideon was feeling kind of let down. He didn't feel like things were going his way. And when he heard that he was a strong warrior and was going to do all this, he didn't really feel like he was the guy for the job. Then the Lord himself spoke and said to Gideon, "You will be strong because I am giving you the power to rescue Israel from the Midianites." Gideon replied, "But how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest, and everyone else in my family is more important than I am." "Gideon," the Lord answered, "you can rescue Israel because I'm going to help you." Let's watch the rest of the story and see how it turns out for Gideon.
So part of God's story is about a man named Gideon, and it begins like this. Israel, God's special family, had turned against the one real God and worshipped idols. They had forgotten how God had loved and cared for them and needed a reminder that He was the one in charge. So God took away the Israelites' farms for 7 long years. Whenever the Israelites planted crops, God would let another nation called the Midianites sweep through and camp on Israel's land, ruining everything that was growing there. But even though his own family had forgotten him, God still loved them deeply. So, at the end of the 7 years, God appeared to a young Israelite named Gideon. God said he was going to free the Israelites with Gideon's help. Gideon, however, wasn't so sure, so he asked God to prove himself by performing a series of miracles. Gideon said, "If the fleece is wet with dew in the morning but the ground is dry, then I will know that you're going to help me rescue Israel as you promised." That's what happened. Just to be sure, the next night, Gideon asked God to do the opposite. Make the fleece dry and make the ground wet. And God did it. Next, he even sent a sign through an angel. Gideon was finally convinced that God was in his corner, so he called together an army to fight against the Midianites. Now, normally having lots of people is a good thing when you're about to battle, but like I said, God does things a bit differently. He told Gideon that the Israelites had too many soldiers. If they won now, God knew the Israelites would say it was because of their own strength and brag about it. So, God wanted Gideon to have a smaller army. Gideon was nervous, but he did as God asked, which is always a good idea, by the way. He told his men that if they were afraid, they could return home. With that, 22,000 soldiers left, leaving Gideon with about 10,000. For you math whizzes, that's 2/3 of his army just poof, gone. Even after all that, the army was still too big. So God told Gideon to take the soldiers down to the water to drink, and then send home the soldiers who drank out of the stream like dogs. Again, Gideon did what God asked, and was now left with only 300 soldiers. God knew Gideon was probably worried, so he told him to sneak down to the enemy camp, where Gideon heard soldiers talking about a crazy dream where a loaf of bread rolled into the Midianite camp and over their tent. One soldier said that could only mean that Gideon would triumph over them. Gideon returned to his own camp, confident that he would win the battle. He divided his men into 3 groups and gave them each a trumpet and a jar with a torch inside. Not usually what you bring to a fight, but God had a plan. Gideon's army reached the edge of the Midianite camp and then went into action. They blew their trumpets, smashed their jars, and shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" And don't forget, they did all of this without a single weapon in their hands. Terrified, the Midianites fled, accidentally attacking each other as they went. In fact, they ran so far from the battlefield that other Israelites were able to capture and defeat the leaders of the Midianites. With the enemy leaders gone and their army running away, God had saved Israel, just like he said he would. And that's the story of Gideon. So, in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Israel turned away from God. God reminded them he was in charge. God said he would save Israel. He would use Gideon. God performed miracles for Gideon. Gideon gathered an army. God made it smaller. Much smaller. Soldiers had a dream. Gideon's army surprised their enemies. The Midianites ran away. God used Gideon to save Israel. And that's a part of God's story.
Amazing story, right? Gideon had lots of questions and didn't have a lot of answers, but he continued to have a conversation with God. God helped him be strong, and God helped Gideon use his brain and really change things for a whole group of people. What did you think was the most important part of that? What was most relevant to you? That means what really stood out? How did you relate to Gideon? Was it not thinking you were strong enough maybe, or maybe feeling like others were more important in your family? There are a lot of things that you can relate to, and I want you to talk about that. We'll take 1 minute or more if you need it, and remember that when you have conversations with others about faith, you are growing in faith too. So share those ideas, ask important questions, and let's learn together. Take a minute now. Go. I hope you had a great conversation. I hope that you related to Gideon in some way. And remember that you are strong because God gives you the power to share God's love in all the world. For me, I relate to Gideon when I sometimes feel like I'm not strong enough to do the things God asks me to do. But through prayer and understanding and conversations, I am reminded that God gives me strength to do the really hard things. Today, we are reminded that lots of people talk about God in lots of different ways. So here's your quick reminder that when we talk about God, we can remember that God is bigger than a person. But when we have conversations or tell stories, sometimes it gets a little complicated. And often we might say God and say God or He. And that's okay. But I want you to remember that God is bigger than a person. Yes, it makes it easier for us to put God into our language, but remember that God is bigger than any person. God is much bigger, and God created you to be an incredible masterpiece that is strong and filled with God's power. So let's sing and be reminded that God will guide us. God will guide us down the path that God calls us. Let's sing.
Power, He will faithful. He is faithful. He's done it before. He'll do it again. He is faithful. He is faithful. He's done it before. He'll do it again. He is faithful. He is faithful. He's done it before. He'll do it again. He is faithful. He is faithful. God will guide us. He will provide for us through the wilderness. He will deliver us.
God will guide us and give us strength. But when we talk about God's strength, what are we talking about? Are we talking about something like this? Even though that shows a lot of strength, I don't think that's exactly the kind of strength God is talking about. I think God's talking about the strength that we get from God to help us do the hard things, the things that might be scary for us. Here is a video that tells Shauna's story. She's going to do something, and I do not recommend you try this at home. But let's watch in and see how she faces some of her fears by knowing that God makes her strong.
Good morning. It's my really big day. It's the day I'm jumping out of an airplane. I was just practicing, looking down from somewhere high, just pretending like this is the airplane, looking down from our loft. I've been researching, and it turns out that by the time you open the chute, our bodies will be going 120 miles per hour. That's pretty fast. I don't know why I'm doing my hair. It really doesn't matter. Honestly, I'm not really that scared. I'm a lot excited, just a little bit nervous, but I'm actually not scared because I don't think anything's gonna happen. We've got some professionals that I'm jumping with who are gonna train me, latch me to them, and then jump out of a plane. Hello.
Hello.
I'm here to jump out of a plane.
The important bit, as soon as we exit the aircraft, I need you to arch forward. Arch comes on your hips, looks like this. Hips forward, your legs are going to be bent.
Okay.
Your hands right back here like this. This is our free fall position when we're in the air.
Okay, maybe I'm just a tiny bit scared. We prayed this morning, and so I feel like he's here with us. He's with our instructors. I feel like God is a huge part of my braveness because God is in control. We can play on this earth, and he has a bigger plan for my life. So this will be good.
Do you remember everything I told you?
Yes.
What's our free fall position? Yeehaw! Right on, let's go skydiving.
Oh, I'm excited. All hooked up there. It was nothing like I was expecting, and it was amazing.
Yeah, would you do that again?
Yes,
In an
totally.
instant. You did awesome out there. Congratulations.
I'm pretty brave. That took a break. When we stepped out of that plane and I was standing there, I was ready to chicken out. So I was like, oh, never mind, I don't want to do this. And as soon as we tipped forward, it was just like, here we go. Woo! And it was just like looking out on all of God's creation. You could see all of the mountains. You could see all this entire mountain range. You could just see the earth. Oh, it was so crazy how much you could see and how amazing it looked. That was fun. How's my hair?
God helped Shauna face her fears, to be calm, and to do something that she wanted to do even though she was scared. God helped Gideon be strong. And by using his brains, he was able to change life for a whole lot of people. You see, God helps all of us to have strength and to be strong, to do the things that are hard for us. That might be standing up to someone when they're being unkind to someone else. It might be telling someone else about God. That can be hard. It might be just figuring out how to be kind to someone that hasn't always been kind to you. There are lots of hard things in the world, but God gives us the strength to do those hard things. God created each of us to be a beautiful masterpiece, beautiful and wonderful just as we are. And God makes you strong. Don't ever forget that. Let's pray. God, thank you for making us strong. When we feel weak or afraid, help us remember that we are strong with you. Amen.